Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Metal Magdalene with Jet right here on Metal Messiah Radio. Tonight we have a special guest with us here on the Metal Magdalene. We have Mr. John Arch of Fate's Warning. Welcome to the show, John.
Wow, you called me Mister. Yeah, that makes me feel old, but thank you for the nice warm welcome. Glad to be with you.
So, John, we were a little reminiscent just now, but tell us a little bit about the early days of Fate's Warning when you first got in there.
Oh, what a mess. Okay, well, I guess we could start with, when we were doing kind of cover tunes. When I went down to audition for them, we were just doing, like Accept and Maiden and Priest and all these songs like, that were kind of in my range, almost. And then we moved on to, Jim suggested we do original music, and it's like, oh, that sounds intimidating because, I don't think any of us had written anything before. So yeah, that was the major undertaking, starting to write original music, and that's kind of where it all started. We started, with a demo that we recorded in East Hartford for, I don't know, we paid for the whole thing, the demo, and then Metal Blade heard it and picked it up, and that ended up being Night on Brocken. Mm-hmm. So that was our first experience writing anything, or just, and it's really raw, it's really rough. And those are the humble beginnings. And, any dates that we did, I remember in the middle of the winter riding in the back of a Ryder rental truck, sleeping on top of amplifiers and taking corners and, everything caving in on top of you, and going to play some dates. And, we were in, I think it was Pittsburgh, and we went to check out the venue before, we played that night. And it was like we walk into this house and it had like beanbag chairs laying around the living room floor. And it's like, are you kidding me? And we said, no, we're not doing this. It stunk so bad. It's like, we're not doing this. So, it's stuff like that. Your humble beginnings, you're playing anywhere and everywhere you can play, and all kind of crazy things happen, but you just have to kind of take that disappointment and say, all right, let's move on to the next one and see what happens. So yeah, very humble beginnings, I'll tell you that.
You don't have to worry about that kind of thing anymore. And you know what else, that's so different is you had mentioned you guys did a demo and Metal Blade picked it up. That shit doesn't happen anymore.
Right. Yeah, no, I know. It's things have changed quite a bit since those days, and it's tight. I mean, with pirating going on, places closing, there's, getting places to play that actually, metal venues. It's not like it used to be. Like we were talking earlier, like in your area and our area, they were all over the place, and you could go see every night of the week. You could go see, bands play, and even if they played for nothing, it still wasn't paid to play, what I mean? Mm-hmm. Which a lot of bands are doing, which I think is absolutely, ridiculous, and it's just wrong. But and I don't mean by the band, but by the clubs or whatever. I mean, everybody's art is worth something. So
you had mentioned, Judas Priest and Iron Maiden and stuff like this, where these were like kind of the bands that influenced you growing up, because, when we were growing up, there was like no death metal and all this other kind of stuff. Right. No,
I think the heaviest thing that I first heard, I mean, like my first concert was a Foghat, Black Oak, Arkansas, and Montrose, so yeah, I'm old. There's no doubt about that. But the first band, so I'm growing up in this rural neighborhood, and everybody's into, I don't know, Diana Ross and Supremes or whatever. And here I am. I'm doing some body work on my car. I think I'm 16 years old, and I have my turntable out on the porch with the speakers pointing out the window, and I've got Uriah Heep live, blasting. And of course, I lived across the street from a cemetery, so I think I woke half the dead people up there. and people would try, because it was loud, and people would walk by on the side, and they'd look like, what in God's name is that Satan music coming out of those speakers? And so Uriah Heep was my first, really, I would consider heavy metal band with all them vocals. I was fascinated. And before that, I led a folk group in church with my acoustic guitar. So, and my influences before that, whatever, Grand Funk Railroad, Elton John, Boston, bands like that came a little bit later. Anything with really with melodies, I'm a fan of. So early influences are what I just mentioned, but then of course later on, bumping into these guys, Jim and Steve and all those guys, there were bands that they were mentioning that I never even heard of, like I don't know, White Witch and Accept and. Boy, the list goes on and on. But of course, I was familiar. Number of the Beast for me is a game changer. I think for a lot of people and for the music industry. I mean, Bruce they took it up a notch. They really did. And I'm still a huge fan of that album and Bruce Dickinson, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. So getting back to Fate's Warning again.
Yeah, I know. I go off on tangents. Just interrupt me.
So just tell us really quick, a little bit. I mean, you were telling us a little bit how about the early days and playing like people's basements and shit like that. But what were some of the other stuff that you were doing? And then just kind of bring us up to, what led to your departure from them.
Okay. Well, okay, so then we go on to a natural progression, I guess, to, Spectre Within. We were able to travel to L.A. and get into a real studio. There was a better budget. We had one album that was kind of an experimental thing, and so it's like a natural progression going to Spectre Within. We had a lot of fun doing that. We got to play some bigger places. We actually got 2 rental cars instead of 1 compact car to fit everybody in, roadies, lighting equipment. And then, it was a cool experience. We went to Capitol Records, which was cool. If I'm not mistaken, Slayer was in the room next to us, and then the other room, Metallica. So it was kind of, taking it up a notch and being able to, even meet some of these people it was really a cool experience. So doing shows, and we move on to Awaken the Guardian, another cool experience where we're able to go back to LA, go back to Capitol Records, use multiple different studios to record, the drums, and then go to this beautiful house that we stayed at, and record actually at the studio. I think it was Preferred Sound. In the house, which was really cool. Analog machines, the technology back then, just so cool. As to how things are today. And then we were able to play bigger venues. And again, there was still a struggle. There was crappy clubs that you ended up at sometimes where the promoter would take off and you wouldn't get paid. It's like, what the hell am I doing this for? And but then there were some larger venues. We were really fortunate to open up for bands like Anthrax and Motorhead. Open up for Queensryche on multiple times, things like that for Saxon, and doing some larger, open air festivals and stuff. So it was a natural progression, and it was all good. So I guess we skip and move on to my departure. So I guess what led up to that was, in our life, our lives, that there are times where the road divides, and we have to make choices on which road we're going to take. So I guess, I don't know if, with me, I had faith in the band, but, it's a whole different thing to okay, you're going to, quit, your job and your income, and you're going to take, to me, it was like a really massive risk. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if at that time, that I believed in myself, to be able to do something like that. Of course, I had always second-guessed it. And, well, let me finish by saying, the band, gave me an ultimatum, which at the time, we were starting to write the next album after Awaken the Guardian. The band, we were in the early stages of writing the next album, and then the band had a meeting, and I didn't know about the meeting. I wasn't invited. Mm-hmm. I felt slighted, and they talked about things, and they were wondering about my commitment to the band. So they basically gave me an ultimatum: quit your job. You got to be ready to leave this and leave that. And at the time, I didn't think it was warranted because we still were I'm not saying struggling, but we were still not at that level where, okay, we're a national act and we're going to be able to hit the road and headline every show. It just wasn't at that level yet. So, I don't know, the ultimatum didn't sit well with me. And I said, you know what, you guys make up your mind what you want to do at this juncture. So, and that's what happened. They made up their mind and, they said, well, we're going to move on and, whatever. Mm-hmm. It was very upsetting to me. I felt I had always contributed to the band. As being a main writer, and I never refused to do anything. I was always there. So, it hurt. And, but I accepted the fact that, okay, that's the way it's going to be, and I'll just move on, and whatever happens, happens. So, I don't know if it was a couple, I don't know what the time frame was. Maybe it was, I don't know if it was even more than 6 months. I got a call back to rejoin the band again. and I said, you know what? I don't think so. I just, whatever. There was kind of a little bad taste in my mouth, and I decided not to. But that's not the only reason. I still had that decision to make which road I was going to take. So I chose that path. And in hindsight, I really think I made the right choice. I've been lucky to still be able to do things in music and have connections and be able to play with some really talented musicians. And it's not a full-time thing. But I was able to, make a living, have a family, pay off my house, and have a little bit of security at my age. And, would it have been like that if I had continued, believing that I could make a living off of music? I don't know. That'll never be known.
I'm going to say no. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it wouldn't have been like that.
I'm going to agree with you. I didn't want to say it.
I'll say it for you.
I thank you.
Being around the same age and seeing the economies like they were then and how it is now, there's no freaking way. So
I agree. I agree. Sometimes you just follow your gut instinct. I'm telling you, man. I've done that all my life. Mm-hmm. I just follow my gut, and it's like if something tells me this smells bad, then I'm going to follow my instincts, and I think it served me pretty well throughout my life.
I think it has. So tell us a little bit then about Twist of Fate, and then when you got back and did that Matheos thing.
Okay, so, Jim is always the impetus when something happens, and he calls. Every time my phone rings and I see the call already, it's Jim. I'm like, oh, shit, what's that? What's he going to want now? Something's happened. And it's my personality. It's my type A personality. It has nothing to do with the fans or Jim or anybody. Mm-hmm. It's me. It's my problem. So anyways, I answered the phone, and he's, he just said, there's not much going on. Are you interested in, trying something? We get together and no pressure. Something happens. It doesn't happen. And I don't know. For some reason, I said, you know what? I did want to create. I've always wanted to create more and feel, more accomplished in music somehow. Excuse me. So, I went up to Jim's studio up in New Hampshire, and we sat down, and he says, well, this is your solo album. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? It's my solo. I got to do all the work, and you're just going to play guitar. So he says, no, basically, this is going to be, your solo album. So I said, okay. So I went home and I started playing my acoustic, which I haven't played in years, and it was like a contortionist act with my fingers, trying to like a game of Twister or something with my finger. So I was able to, write 90% of what ended up being Cheyenne. And, which is totally different than, like, I think anything we've ever done, because I was basically the main writer, and that's just what came out of me. And then after that, I started working on Relentless, which I probably had maybe 50%. And then, Jim and I got together, and I said, well, this is the direction it's heading in. And then we worked together to finish it. Of course, when Jim got involved, it became much more complex with much better guitar playing. And that became, so, actually we were into it, and I was feeling really good about it, and like, hey, yeah, come on, things are going. And unfortunately for me, I wanted to do a whole album. I wanted to keep going with it, because I think we were on a roll. But Jim had commitments, with the current lineup of Fate's Warning, so we had to stop short, and it's like, oh, that's a bummer. But we ended up releasing it as an EP, and, 30 minutes of music, it's a long EP. And so that's how that came about, and that was really the first time I got my feet wet after, for 30 years.
So what about Twist of Fate?
Twist of Fate, okay, how that came along, my phone rang again, and it was Jim again, and I panicked again. And No, not really. So I answered the phone, and Jim said, "Look, I've got quite a bit of material. I've been working on an album for the current lineup of Fate's Warning, and how do I say this very politically and very nicely? But I guess there was a commitment." That wasn't being followed through on somebody's part, someone else in the band's part, that actually wanted to do the album. Was the woman that really wanted to do the album. Did I say that okay? Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So he says, I have this music, nothing's happening with it. You want to come up and, we'll see what happens. No pressure. I've heard that story before. So back up to New Hampshire I went, and I had to get my voice back in shape again. It's like so hard to stop and then start again, but whatever. So it took a while to get my voice back in shape, and I basically did that in the studio while writing at home. Jim would send me files, and I would turn the lights off and just get in some deep thinking state and start writing some lyrics and getting direction ideas. So that started coming together actually faster than I thought. It was a good feeling. We worked together like we always have. Jim's really good to work with. He's very patient. I don't know how he listens to me through the headphones, take after take after take. It's like a cat fight going on for 3 hours. I don't know how he does it. But he just says, I just tune it out. I said, okay, more power to you. I don't know how you do it. So it came together pretty quick. I mean, the first couple of songs, he had pretty complete, I would probably say 4 songs he had near completion. So I was really pleased that things were coming together and they sounded pretty decent. And then the rest of the album, we kind of wrote together in conjunction. I wrote Incense and Myrrh, the last song on the album, by myself with some arrangement from Jim. And I wrote some, in-between parts, like On the Fence, that instrumental part. Mm-hmm. But it came together quickly, and before you know it, we were wrapping it up, and I was super nervous because, you're putting yourself out there again, and what are people going to think, and how does it sound? I didn't know, but it was well received, and things were great. They flew us to London to do some press and to LA, and it was like a little mini vacation that was paid for. And I was like, this is fantastic. So it was good. It was another good outcome. We did a couple shows for that also. One in Hartford at the Webster. Ooh. And then, which I will not frequent anymore. But that's a whole other story. And then another one, in Germany. So it was. Again, I'm always, they drag me in kicking and screaming, but when it's all said and done, I'm glad I did it.
Okay, so now we're up to 2016. Last year, Fate's Warning celebrated their 30th anniversary of the third album, Awaken the Guardian. With you and the rest of the original lineup of that album, you all went out and did 2 big shows. So tell us about those 2 shows and that whole 30th anniversary celebration thing you had there.
Okay, well, my phone rang again. Okay, I can't keep saying that. It was Jim. And, he said, and I love the way these guys are smart. They know how the angle. And he said, look, it's a 30-year anniversary of Awaken the Guardian. Of course, Fates have done anniversary albums for their material. And his exact words were that I spoke to all the other guys, and they're really heavily into it. So I'm like, oh, okay. And it's like, why should I be the one to put the kibosh on that? It sounds like something we really had to do anyways, not just for the band, but for the fans. I mean, the fans have been fantastic, and I really wanted to give something back. So I agreed to the shows. It's like, okay, I know it's going to be a lot of work. I'm starting from scratch with my voice again, and but let's do it. He says, okay, cool. And so they signed some contracts, and then he called me back the next day. He says, oh, yeah, by the way, it's going to be videotaped for DVDs. And it's like, oh, man, you're slick. Okay. So, so a lot of, rehearsal. Everybody did their homework, rehearsing on their own. We really didn't rehearse as a band, of course, for 30 years. But 6 months before the shows, we got together. And we went down to Newington, which I'm sure you know where that is, back down to where we used to practice, which would be Steve's Mom's house down in the dungeon, and we walked in there, and it was like the episode of The Twilight Zone. It was the same pictures, same analog equipment, same fish tank, same fish in the tank.
Oh my God.
I know. No, I'm exaggerating, but it was so funny. It's like, this is surreal being back down here again, you know? It still smelled like old socks, and, you know, so whatever. We had, you know, certain chemistry back then. We always laughed and joked around, and it wasn't long before we started, laughing and joking and having a good time. So 6 months before the shows, we started rehearsing. It was a little rusty, but I'd say after a couple of weeks of rehearsal, started to sound cohesive. We didn't have the luxury of having Frank here because he lives in L.A., so of course he did his homework. So going into these shows, of course, there's a lot of variables going on. I hadn't sang, since those other two shows, in 2012. So again, daunting task, but before you know it, it was here. It was this time to go to Germany, and it's the same MO for me. Everybody knows that I'm type A, and that I get really, really nervous before a show. So there were things that happened, during the show and before the shows, but I won't bore you with all those details. The bottom line is the fans, in Germany. Well, let me go back to 2012 real quick. We did Arch Matheos, okay? So I think a lot of the fans who were not familiar with the Arch Matheos music. So we played Arch Matheos first, and then we went into some of the Guardian and Spectre stuff back in 2012, and you could definitely tell the difference when we hit the Guardian stuff. The fans really came alive. Mm-hmm. So going into these shows, I had a little bit more confidence with the audience because it was all going to be all early fates, and I kind of knew there's such rabid fans for this that I knew the audience was going to be in true form, and they really were. They got the band fed off the energy from the these fans that it's like walking again into the Twilight Zone. They're all dressed in the 80s, and they are like hardcore. Everybody's dressed like Rob Halford from Judas Priest, and they are so passionate about the music. It's like a religious experience for them. They're crammed in there like sardines, like sweating profusely, but they don't care. It's like there's no fist fights going on. They're just like massive, convergence and blob of human flesh, and they're so into it. So it's just a really great experience. After I walked off stage, I felt really good about it. And then going to Prague Power, again, as a vocalist, you never know what to expect, so I'm nervous about what's going to come out of my mouth when I open it up. And I guess one quick story, if you have time.
Yeah.
We had a sound check at Prague Power, and I had new in-ears that I used in Germany, and I was using them again, of course, at Prague Power. So they said the sound check sounded fantastic, at sound check, but when it came time, we hopped up on stage for the show. We broke into the first song after the intro tape, and all of a sudden, it's just like, I don't know, massive distortion was coming out of my in-ears, and all I had was Frank Oresti on my left. I had his guitar, full blast in both ears. I had no drums, I had no Jim, I had no me, I had no bass, I had absolutely nothing. So it's like, what a way to start. You want to talk about, I was already, panicking because here we are, and then that on top of it. So somehow, I don't know how you do it. You have to go. It's go time. So I did the best I could. We got through the Sorceress, and then it was time for Valley of the Dolls. So I got through the Valley of the Dolls without hearing anything. I don't know how, because this time signature change is going on, and I have to stay with everything. So we started at the first verse, and I lost it. I was like, I just got so angry. It's like I look over at the sound guy, and I look, and he's got his feet up on the soundboard, his head is back, his mouth is wide open, and he's sound asleep. And I'm like, dude, are you kidding me? And I had a wireless mic that I just bought, and I was going to throw it at him, but I said, no, it's much too expensive, and I had nothing else near me. I could have taken my shoe off, I guess. But, I started singing again, like, at the bridge part. So the second half of the verse. So I missed half of the verse. And the band, Jim went with me. the rest of the other band, they stayed on where they should have. So it was like, it sounded like a car wreck. And I'm like, this is not good. So anyways, we pulled it together, and the guitar tech luckily saw me, and I was beat red, and he went over to the board, and he somehow got some resemblance of, whatever, we could hear ourselves anyways. So we got through the rest of the night, and again, the fans are crazy. It's amazing. You look out to the audience and you take little personal snapshots in your brain of, people singing along every word, and their fists are in the air, and some of them are crying during Guardian. It's just like, wow, it's just like, where can you get this? It's like, it was such a great experience. So are you still laughing?
I can't believe all that happened because.
Oh, it did. Oh, and more. You want to hear another one real quick? Okay. So we're before the show started. This is in Germany, and all three of us are in the dressing room. All five of us are in the dressing room, and Jim, myself, and Frank said, whatever, we gotta take a leak. So the bathroom is like on the third floor of this place. And so, we're running up these concrete stairs. We know we're going on soon. So Jim goes into the bathroom to do whatever he's doing. I shouldn't mention names here. Somebody's in the bathroom doing it. And all of a sudden, it's like our intro tape goes on. And in the bathroom, I hear, oh, shit, that's us. And you hear all this commotion and toilet seat falling down. And the door opens up, and we just run to the stage as fast as we can, just in time to hit the first note. So that's how the show started in Germany. So this is it, man. This is like our Spinal Tap moments that we have with these shows. But in the end, shit happens, but it turned out really well. Audience was great.
It did, and now you guys got the Awaken the Guardian live out there.
Yeah, pretty soon. Yeah,
and you should have done like a Spinal Tap thing and had film of all this stuff going on backstage.
Had I known, it would have been done. No doubt about it. But I don't know. Yeah, it's really, really funny stuff. Yeah, so now we have the live stuff coming out, which is cool, and thank God for technology, because again, what I just told you about Valley of the Dolls, we didn't want to scrap the whole song off the album. So, after we were done, of course, like all bands do, go into the studio, and I had some lead balloons that came out of my mouth that had to be touched up, no doubt about that, and guitars and drums. There's stuff that we needed to fix that wasn't quite on par. But I will say that all said and done, we kept like 75-80% of it original. We tried not to. There was no auto-tune. There was no fairy dust. It was basically, we did some touch-ups, and only as little as possible. And my general makeup is like, no, let's fix everything. But thank God Jim, talked me off the cliff a couple times and said, no, we got to leave. It's a live album. It's not studio album. So let's leave it raw and what it is. So luckily we were able to fix, Valley. I don't know what they did. Maybe they panned out to the audience in the concession stand and the ceiling. I don't know. They got the attention off of us somehow, and we were able to fix it. So,
and just the audio part sounds really, really good. I mean, I didn't get to see it. So, did you see any of it yet? Did you get any of it back to see?
The only thing that I've seen is let me see. Which just Fata Morgana, which the Metal Blade released as advertisement for the DVDs, and the other stuff that I saw, which was before anything was edited at all, like the video, putting all the clips together. There's 12 different cameras going on. Was when I was in the studio, anything that I had to fix, if I had to fix like maybe a small phrase or something that was like really sharp or flat, I had to actually see the video and then listen to what I did over and over again, because you have to get it exactly right. You gotta get it on key, of course, this time. But so it didn't look like some bands, they don't take the time, and it's so obvious that they're lip syncing, through the video. And to me, that annoys me to no end. It's like, if you're gonna fake it, you might as well. So, anyways, just the areas that we touched up, I had to get I had to sing it exactly the way it was and make sure everything was on the right time. So that's really, I saw little bits and pieces of it, but No, I don't. I have no idea. We're going to have like a little listening party. The guys are going to come over. I'm going to drink a lot of alcohol before I watch it, and and then we're going to roll the film and see. We're hypercritical, so I'm sure we're going to be like, oh my, or we're going to laugh at each other. Like there was one point where we're in the middle of a song, and Joe and Frank came together, and Joe said something to Frank. And they both started like laughing really loud as they were playing a song, and they were talking about Jim. I don't know what they said, but we had a running joke about that. Like, oh, what were you guys talking about? And whatever, they told us what they were talking about. It was pretty funny, and so Jim was giving him shit about that. Like, oh yeah, talking about me right on stage. That's not really nice. So, we're going to see little things like that during the video and laugh, so it'll be fun.
And there's a lot of different things that's coming out with it, too. I mean, there's vinyl. I saw, like, purple vinyl. I think there might be a green one. There's a book of art that comes with it. It looks like it's a hardcover, too.
I had nothing at all to do with anything. I am not, like, a marketing guy or nothing.
It's okay, I looked.
Did you? Yeah. And so I'm thinking that Jim gets involved with some of the stuff. So Jim's very into when they go on tour and talking. He's kind of like they have a booking agent, but he's kind of like a manager. So I'm guessing that Metal Blade was 99% of it. The gentleman who did the original cover art. I'm going to annihilate his name. I know it's Johannes Vassapolopoulos. It's a Greek. I know that's not it. Mm-hmm. It's but he is doing reissues of the cover art, and he's releasing the booklets and some regular I don't even know what they call them, but posters and stuff. So yeah, you know what? It's pretty cool. That I know there's a lot of people that collect vinyl. And, some of the fans really like that stuff. So that'll be shirts. There'll be all kinds of things. And, I think we get one free copy, which is really generous. I'm excited about that. So it's all good.
And there you go. People could actually pre-order it now, I believe, off of the Metal Blade site. And John, thank you for taking the time to reminisce with us a little bit and tell us about the live album, and gosh, all the best to you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that very much, being on the show, and pleasure meeting you. And sometime we'll reminisce some more about the local Connecticut scene. That was fun.
Okay, take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
That was